Hey everybody, St. Paul here, and welcome to episode 42 of Music on the Run. You know who I've got coming up next? Barry Lather, incredible choreographer, director, producer. He's next on Music on the Run. Hey everybody, welcome to Music on the Run. My name is St. Paul Peterson, and we are now at episode 42. Man, hard to believe. Sound a little bit like a baseball announcer. Hey! My mom and dad used to play the organ at the Twins game from the inception of the Twins in the 60s all the way up through mid-1972. So that was always super fun and part of our summers growing up. How was your weekend? I hope your holiday weekend, your July 4th weekend was great. Mine was. I got to go out to California and visit my daughter. And while I was out there, we had a Funk Friday barbecue, LA edition. You're going, what's Funk Friday? Well, if you haven't checked out Funk Friday, it's our weekly 1-minute series of funk jams. We've done 70 of them. Isn't that crazy? And we've had over 100 world-class musicians, and they're little nuggets. They're 1 minute long, and they keep saying, why don't you put out a record? I'm like, because once money gets involved, then it's not as much fun. So we're doing this purely for the love of music. So go check out Funk Friday. That's what it's called. And you'll see it on our YouTube page. You'll see it on all of our social media. Anyway, we finally had a chance, and some of these guys I've never got to hang with in person. So I called a barbecue, and I set out an invite. And we had probably 25 people at this barbecue at my buddy's house. Thank you, Oliver. I appreciate your use of your barbecue. We fired that bad boy up, and we had a blast. And you know what else I did? You guys, it was my aunt's 95th birthday. My mom's sister. She looks exactly like my mother, so that tugs on my heartstrings. And she's such a bright, incredibly sharp 95-year-old woman. So we had a family reunion up there in Bakersfield, had a great time. So I hope your 4th was as good as mine was. Let's jump right into it. We might as well, right? So episode 42, Music on the Run. My next guest here is a dancer. Get ready for the list. Choreographer, director, producer, and yes, a recording artist. And we're going to talk about that because I don't hear a lot of podcasts about your recording artist, Dave. He's worked with so many people, including Janet and Michael Jackson, Donny Osmond, Carrie Underwood, Britney, Usher, Queen Latifah, and just a billion more. And we'll get into that in a little bit. I just looked at his choreography and directing reel, and it's mind-blowing. So make sure you go check it out. Please welcome my old buddy, Barry Lather. How are you, man?
Hey, doing good.
Good
Excellent
to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on.
Thank you. It's all good. Happy to join you.
Tell me what you've been doing for the past year. I mean, you and I seem to be in the same boat as far as, in the same biz, but I think you were actually busy in the last year, right? Were you directing shows or were you at home?
It did definitely slowed down big time. Definitely slowed down. I probably did 3 jobs in 15 months, which is not the norm,
Of course not,
so,
yeah.
No, but things have picked up for sure. I just got back from Greece, and I actually finished a show that I was working on when the whole lockdown happened. So I got to go back and actually finish the show, complete it, and get it on its feet.
Where was that, Barry?
It was on Celebrity Cruise Lines. It's
cool.
brand new ship they just built. Hadn't even done a maiden voyage yet. And we did this rock show, this classic rock show with Beatles, Stones, The Who, Hendrix, you name it. It was just a great rock show. And I was directing it, and I just was happy. It was such a good show. And we were like a week away from finishing it. And then the lockdown happened. So I'm like, are we ever going to finish this thing? So I was happy we did.
You're lucky you didn't get caught on that cruise ship. Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people who were out. In fact, our intern Tanner used to work on cruise ships, and he said he had so many friends stranded out at sea for months upon months upon months. So, do you know anybody from those cruise lines that got stranded at all?
Well, I know that the cat. I mean, I left immediately. Thank God, my wife called me at 2:00 in the morning. We were in France at the time, docked, and the boat was still under construction, the ship, but we were docked. This was last March, a year ago, year and a half almost. But a lot of the people had to stay on the boat for almost like 3 to 4 weeks. I left immediately once I heard. I'm like, I'm getting out of here. I don't want to take a chance. So it's all good. I'm glad I left. But no horror stories. But I do know the cast. They couldn't go home right away. Like they almost like had to hang out for almost like a month before they
cruise
could get
ships
home.
are interesting places to be right now. I think things are finally starting to turn around, and they're starting to cruise again. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep. It's very fresh. Like we were the first cruise that just went out June 19th. And we did the Greek Isles for a week, which was awesome. And I got to see the opening of our show in front of a live audience. So that was a lot of fun, and now I'm home and starting early pre-production and conceptual ideas for Carrie Underwood's Las Vegas residency show. That's going to be.
She's got a residency coming up. I did not know that.
Yeah, December 1st it opens. So we are in the creative stages now, dreaming it up.
That's great. You and I met, got to be 20 years ago now, when I was the musical director for Donny Osmond, and you came on as did you produce that show, or were you just a choreographer? Not just a choreographer, but what was your role in that show?
I know Donnie asked me to come in and help, not just with the movement and staging, but also just like help put the show together. So I would say it's choreography and also like creative directing, just get the whole show and the flow together and make sure, everything's cool. So I wasn't just focused on the steps, but just the overall, and lighting and moments. And as you know, pacing and timing is everything for a show. You got to have a good set list. You got to have good energy. Are we losing audience here, or do we got to switch the song around? All that stuff. But it was fun. I mean, he's a great guy and extremely energetic, and we did meet then. That was fun.
You and I had a ball out there. You, me, Jason, and the boys in the band. We laughed so much.
A lot.
What was Jason's character? My nephew's character, Floyd Warren.
Yeah.
We made a whole video on Floyd Warren. I think it's somewhere on. We made a little sitcom or something on there.
I remember.
So funny. And you live in Minnesota, which I did not know, of course, many years ago. But you live in Minnesota as well.
Yeah, I mean, I lived in I grew up in Atlanta. I was an Atlanta kid. I grew up in Atlanta right out of high school, senior year. Boom, went to L.A. Was in LA for about 15 years, and then I've been in Minneapolis, outside of Minneapolis area now for 20 years.
I can't believe that. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, me too. Like, this is the longest I've ever lived anywhere.
Right.
We're always on the go,
And the dude can play some golf. We've had some fun on the golf course. We're going to get out again this summer for sure. In a few weeks.
Yeah, we got to.
Let's take it all the way back to Atlanta. You mentioned that you grew up there, and tell me about your family.
Yeah. My mom, basically I was in a dancing family. My mom was a dance teacher. At one time, she had 2 dance studios back in Albany, New York. That's where I was born, but they moved down south when I was like a year and a half old. So Atlanta's my, all my childhood memories. But my mom was a dance teacher. I'm the youngest of 5 kids. We always danced growing up. Music was always on in the house growing up. And then the funny thing is my dad sold dance wear, dance supplies, dance shoes, tap shoes, toe shoes, ballet shoes, leotards. So the costume business, with all those recitals that dance studios have. So it was kind of funny. My mom and dad were definitely like a yin and yang. And I grew up in that type of environment. And also, I toured every summer. It's weird to say, hey, I toured as a kid, but I did. I mean,
really?
I was on the road every June and July from 5 years old to 15, touring city to city to city with my mom, who was on faculty with this dance convention, company. And it was kind of like me and my sister they're like, you're going on the road with mom every summer, and we were her little demonstrators up on stage in front of 300, 400, 500, 600 dancers on the floor. So I just pretty much grew up on this kind of traveling, dancing kid every summer throughout the whole 70s. It was pretty fun and pretty funny looking back now. Like, oh, I grew up kind of different.
You've been on the road since you're 5 years old. You might win the record. You or Donnie one of the two of you might win the world record for that. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was
what kind
crazy.
of music was playing around your house? Because not only are you a dancer, but you're also a singer.
Yeah,
well, we got to talk about that in a little bit. But what was your mom and dad playing around the house?
It's funny. Most of my memories, as far as mom and dad playing music, was always like in the car, But I have 3 older brothers, and one of my older brothers was more definitely the music guy and had all the albums and all the records and the fancy stereo equipment that the young brother. I don't touch the stereo.
Don't touch my stuff.
Yeah, that's an expensive needle. I'm the youngest of 5. Yeah, youngest of 5.
Yeah, me too. I've got older brothers. Don't touch my stuff.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I grew up hearing, all over the place as it was in the 70s, pop music, rock music, R&B. It was just a fusion, disco. We heard, Ohio Players, Stevie Wonder, the Jackson 5, but then I also would hear Bad Company, Foreigner, Foghat, Styx. It's just a smorgasbord of music. Donna Summers, it was just all over the place. But that's how the 70s was to me. Parliament Funk.
Oh, yeah.
Zap.
Right.
I mean, so
in a dance family, who are you looking up to? Who are your influences in dance at that time? Besides your mom.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I definitely 100% watched Soul Train and American Bandstand every Saturday. And, I was fascinated by the lockers that were on Soul Train and just their street dance flavor and vibe. I don't even think we called it street dancing back then. We just called it locking. Yeah. But, they were roboting and locking and doing all the just like athletic, cool, funky stuff, with crazy like baggy pants and suspenders and funky hats to the side. And I'm just like, who are these people? They look like dancing clowns, but I would emulate them. I love them. I would emulate them. I mean, that's where I learned the robot, was watching television. Wow. I was so into robot when I was like 7, 8 years old. I just thought it was so cool. And then, years went on, and by the late 70s, early 80s, then break-in and street dancing got bigger and bigger and bigger, and, b-boying and all that. So it's kind of weird because I look back, I'm like, well, I've been attracted and fascinated by locking and street dancing, and now here it is, another little evolution later, and I'm still loving it, So that had a big impact on me. But I also would see, which is crazy, I also was exposed to Broadway shows at a young age because every summer we would tour, and the last city was always New York City. It was always Manhattan. And I always knew, and I was, I didn't realize how lucky I was as a kid. I always got to go see at least one Broadway show every summer, whatever the hottest show was. I remember seeing The Wiz in the mid-'70s. I saw Annie. I saw 42nd Street. I saw Dancing, Bob Fosse stuff. So it was kind of like I was exposed to like tap, jazz, ballet, but I also loved street dancing. So I was like a hybrid kid that just got exposed to a lot of different things.
So, like a musician, you're well-rounded in every genre of dance then.
Yeah, I mean, I have favorites. Obviously, jazz was my all-time favorite, and then street dancing and popping and locking and waving and all that. I got obsessed with it at like 15. But I did take ballet growing up. That's your technical training. It's like if that's your core, you got ballet training, you could do almost all the other stuff. But you had to have your ballet training, which I didn't love when I was a kid. I'm like, oh my God, I got to take this because I have to, because mom's telling me, mom and dad, it's good for me, whatever, but it's all good. I'm, now looking back, I moved to LA when I was 18 to dance and hopefully become a choreographer. And the first thing, I quit ballet, or I think I was around 13, but I stuck with jazz. So I knew like okay, you're going to do this for a living and you're going to try to dance for a living and make a living, and go for it and get a check. You got it. The fastest way I had to get better was I got to get my butt back into ballet classes. I had to. So I did, and a year later I was working on the television show Fame, with doing more technical jazz-like dancing. And, again, ballet, that's where your core, that's where your strength is. That's where you're going to get all your power and center, So I'm sure it's like that for musicians. There's got to be stuff that you trained. Like, you got to have this core.
For me, that's bebop. Everything for me comes from jazz. I think R&B comes from jazz, or possibly the blues. But everything that I've done in my career because of my background has come from jazz.
Wow,
and pop,
very cool.
Whatever the case may be, everything comes back to Spangalang, as we like to call it. Hey,
funny.
When did you decide that this was going to be what you were going to do for a living?
I knew. I mean, I've been a dancing kid since I was 5. So and being in showcases, with little costumes on with my mom, my sister, we're kind of like the Brady Bunch of the 70s when we're on these dance conventions. It was like a family act, and I just knew that dancing. I was good at it, and it gave me attention. I'm the youngest of 5 kids, so hey, I'm getting attention here. People like me dancing, so I'm gonna keep doing it.
I love this.
But I think around 15, probably around 16, I'm like, okay, I got to decide. Like, am I going to go to college or am I going to go to New York or LA? Like, what am I doing here? And I just knew, I just kept thinking it was to me, a kid from Atlanta. It was New York or LA, and I just wasn't feeling stage, theater, Broadway for me. And I was feeling MTV was only 3 years old at the time. I was feeling, film, commercial, videos, that segment. So I'm like, I'm going to LA. I'm going to go to LA and give the shot as a dancer. And I thought about it a lot, and I was just worried that if I went to college and spent 4 or 5 years at college, then moved to LA when I'm maybe 22 or 3,
right.
Like, I just wanted to get in it right away at 18. And I had a scholarship waiting for me in LA at one of the biggest dance studios. So I'm like, I'm going to get all my training for free. And 7 days a week, I can take class. And I'm like, that's where I'm going. So it was the right choice for me, and I always knew, I want to be a dancer first. But secondly, I somehow, some way, I want to become a choreographer. Because I always loved freestyling. I always loved making up my own steps.
Yeah.
I love being put on the spot and do something.
Freestyle,
dance,
baby. Freestyle.
Dance. So I love that. And I loved making up my own little routines. So I knew I had that, and I used to help my mom with her routines at 12, 13 years old, make up the steps, memorize all the steps. And, I didn't realize I was choreographing. I didn't know that word at the time. I was just like, I'm making up steps. I'm just making them up and they're fun. But then I realized you're choreographing. That's what
the
you're
key
doing.
word is fun.
Yeah,
because everything I've seen you do, you have fun with.
Absolutely.
And you surround yourself with people who you turn it all into fun. Because that can be a very, speaking from experience, it can be a very intimidating, terrifying experience for somebody who doesn't move well.
Yeah.
To have a choreographer come in and say, I'm going to help you. And immediately I start to pucker up. I'm like, oh man. And then I get tighter. But you have the ability, and I've seen you do this, you have the ability to make it into something that's not tense, that's not stressful, and you make it fun. And you've been doing that evidently since you're 12 or before that.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. I've always been around music and dance my whole life. So that's all I knew. And I enjoyed it. And it made me tick. It was part of my soul. So, I mean, I remember pinching myself because, I really thought I would probably have to work as a dancer for about 10 years before I can even become a choreographer. I just thought, work with the best, try to learn as much as you can, observe, on every gig, observe the choreographer, how they conduct themselves, how they maintain themselves. Because that's what you want to do, watch, learn. But, it happened quickly for me. And like I said, I just, I was in a couple Janet Jackson videos that Paula Abdul had choreographed, and she hired me, Paula, and forever thankful. And that's how I met Janet. And as time went by, after Paula, Janet had literally she called me up and asked me would I be interested in choreographing for her. And I was just like, yeah, I mean, that's what I want to do. I just couldn't believe the opportunity, she brought it up. And I started choreographing at like 20 years old. I had a short-lived dance career. I danced 18, 19, 20, and now I'm suddenly choreographing, and I'm like, wow, this is really happening. I started doing music videos, then it was commercials, then it was films. I'm like, oh my God, like this choreography thing is taking off, which I was so happy. I just didn't expect it that soon. That's all.
Well, before you were a choreographer, you said that you were a dancer and it was a short-lived career, but you have to tell me and the people who are listening what your first gig was as a dancer. My first gig as a dancer was the Michael Jackson film Captain EO that he did for Disney and Epcot Center. I was in LA for 11 months before I got my first job. So Wait, did you have any good side gigs? How did you survive? I want to know if you were delivering papers, selling burgers.
No. I was teaching dance. So I would teach my own dance classes, which I had been doing since I was 15.
Right.
I would teach classes on weekends. I taught for the company that Joe Tremaine is his name, famous jazz, master, West Coast jazz style. Joe Tremaine, I taught for his dance conventions and was one of his assistants. So I was teaching dance to make money, until I can make enough as a dancer and a professional working dancer in LA. But my first big gig, and I'll never forget it. I mean, 1,400 people auditioned, and they hired 40. They hired 40. And me and this other girl were the two youngins in the back. I was 18 years old, almost 19. And I'm like, I don't care if I'm in the back of 40 people. I got the gig. I'm working with Michael Jackson, and I'm like going to have to join the union. And I'm like, this is happening. I'm working with Michael right now. And just 2 years earlier, I was a senior in high school, watching Thriller, watching Beat It. Watching all the music videos with street dancing in it. Michael was on top of the world then. It was his first huge project after Thriller. After the whole success of Thriller, everybody in LA wanted that job. And again, pinched myself. I got that gig, and I was so thrilled and so happy. Unreal.
So then you started working with Paula after that. Now, I have a history with Paula as well.
Yeah.
She choreographed my Rich Man video, which is
so
probably
crazy.
1986.
Yep.
At that time.
Yep.
And so she was a friend of mine back in those days. And so she hired you to be in the Janet videos. I'm just recapping what you've already said.
Yeah. Around the same time.
What were those two videos that you were in of Janet's?
I was in Nasty Boys on the Control album, Nasty Boys, which was her second single. And then I was on the third single, When I Think of You. So both of those music videos. And then
that's Jam and Lewis.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yet another Minneapolis connection.
I know. It's crazy. It really is funny. And then, gosh, I think The Pleasure Principle was her fifth or sixth video off that album. Mm-hmm. And I choreographed The Pleasure Principle video, not Paula. Paula had done all the first. Huh?
That was
the big one in the warehouse.
Videos. It was huge.
Yeah, her solo in the big warehouse by herself for 4 minutes long, holding it down. Crazy. That was my first big video that I choreographed. But what's funny is talking about Minneapolis and Jam and Lewis and all that. Just a month before I choreographed that video, I did Janet's control performance on the American Music Awards, January of '87.
Oh, wow.
And then it was just her and four guys. And one of the dancers, I felt terrible. I'm a young choreographer, hiring people older than me or peers that I look up to. I'm like, hey, I'm choreographing. I want to hire you for a gig. But one of the dancers didn't work out. And because I choreographed the whole thing and I knew all the steps, Janet and her boyfriend at the time, they're like, we're were a little concerned about him. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. I see it. I know he's not as funky as the other guys, but they go, yeah, we're just thinking maybe you could take his place since you know everything. And I was like, what? I was like, oh no. Wow. So you're asking me to fire somebody, let somebody go and take his spot.
Woo!
But I did. I had to for the integrity of the job. And so I did that American Music Award performance of Control, her and 4 guys. I'm dancing right off her shoulder. And the very next month, I choreographed her live performance on the Grammys with Jam and Lewis and Jerome.
So wait, did you have to incorporate all the steps
all
that
that.
we did? You stole all that stuff and made sure they were comfortable because they'd been doing that for years.
Yeah, yep, the penguin. I called that the penguin. We used to do the penguin.
Chili sauce and all that?
Chili sauce, all that stuff. So, yeah, and after that Grammy Award performance, so I did 2 in a row for Janet, both award show performances, and she was just killing it. Yeah. And John McClain, at the label, A&M, just said, you're doing her next video in the story. Boom. And that was the Pleasure Principle, which is just nuts. Yeah.
Did you?
That's why it was happening.
Did you know at the time that, Janet was 5 singles in, so it was evident that she was going to be a superstar, but did you?
Yeah.
Was that intimidating for you to go, so much of her image, her movement, everything she's doing here relies on what I bring to the party? Was that intimidating for you at all?
I would call it intimidated. I was nervous, but it was a good nervous, and because I cared, and I wanted to do the absolute best job I could. And I felt like I proved myself a little bit on the award shows, but this wasn't this is a music video, crafted from the beginning to the end, and, working with a director. And, originally, which is funny, is that music video was going to be Janet with Nasty Girls.
Yeah.
And I remember in the meeting, it was actually John McClain. He says, you know what? We've seen Janet dance with guys, with girls, with guys and girls. He goes, for once, I would love to see her just dance by herself.
Yeah.
And show to everybody she don't need dancers around her. She could do it by herself. And I was like, that's pretty bold, but that's where it ended up going to. That's what the music video ended up being that.
That was groundbreaking.
Yeah. I think we rehearsed 5 to 6 days at a little dance studio in North Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And then it was supposed to be a 2-night shoot. It ended up being 3 nights because, we're shooting from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. Ooh. And there was so much to capture. And I remember the end of the second night, it's almost 5 a.m. and we still had a lot to do. And she was running out of gas. And I remember the director is looking at me and we're looking at Janet and we're just like, you know what? We're just going to have to come back tomorrow night because we just couldn't finish it.
Right.
So luckily we did. And she came back fresh and nailed it. And, long story short, a year later, I was up for 2 MTV awards for best choreography in a video. One was Sting, which was on A&M Records, and one was Janet, the Pleasure Principle, and I ended up winning for Janet, which was nuts.
And you're 22, 21?
20
something.
I was 20, almost 21 years old.
Unreal. So not only is Janet's career flying, so is yours. This leads to so many different things for you. That had to be the door opener for you.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I work with Jody Watley. I work with Troop. Had a meeting with Pebbles. Didn't work with her, but Expose, Sheena Easton. It was just go, go, go. All suddenly I was doing all these music videos.
So wait a minute. Now, for those of you who are not watching this is a funky white boy. Did anybody go, man, where did you learn how to move like that? Seriously, I get this question a lot.
I heard it
in
a
my
lot
life.
growing up.
Why'd you get so funky? And what's your answer to that?
I grew up in Atlanta and I heard that my whole life, doing a robot at 7, 8 years old and just being, I love funk. I just dance, I just had heard it my whole life, and to me, it was always a huge compliment, big time. And, to be able to hang and dance and do my thing. And if people say, hey, you are super funky, dude. Just so you know, you were a funky cat. I mean, to me, I'm like, well, thank you, you know, but I was like, oh,
Well,
I felt it inside. But it was cool to heir that, you know. So always a
Jam and
compliment
Lewis,
to me.
man. I know they think you're funky, man. I already know that.
They used to call me Chili Most. They go, Barry, you Chili Most. And I'm like, what's that mean? What's Chili Most?
That's a good thing.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Because they were laughing and giggling at rehearsals. They call me Chili Most.
So you've got all these different artists wanting you to come in and work with them. We'll talk a little bit about them, but I want to know about when you were approached to do a record, your own record as an artist, not a choreographer or dancer. I mean, you did that during your artistry, but who came to you and said, "You're doing a record, man"?
That's a great question. I guess after 2 years of working with so many artists, and helping artists move and help choreograph them and help them, you know, look great for their videos or, you know, TV award performances. You know, I just would pour my heart and soul into choreography. I never moved to LA to ever think to be a singer. Never. It was dancer, choreographer.
Right.
But as I was in the industry and being around all these music videos and record labels, and, you know, I was just in it. You know, I worked with Debbie Gibson, worked with just a lot of people. And I started thinking, God, you know, and of course I saw Paula's success too. Paula with, you know, choreographer turned pop star, and her first album was amazing and had so many hit records. But I was just like, God, you know, I want to try to do some music demos and just get my voice down and just see what I have. See, you know, I had the curiosity in me.
Right.
I wasn't going to try to be anybody else but me, but I'm like, I don't know. I have never recorded a music demo. So let's try. So I did. And I actually worked with, and I paid for a lot of my little demos back then, $500 there, $1,000 here, you know, it was money I made as a choreographer. And, you know, I was just trying to find my little niche, or, you know, it takes time to find your voice or also find your sound, or is it too pop? Is it too folky? Is it too funky? Do I want to rap? Because I love rap music, but I'm like, I don't want to rap because I feel like I respect rap music too much. I love Public Enemy. I love the Beastie Boys. I loved a lot of great rappers. I'm like, even though I love it, I don't want to try to copy that. I felt more comfortable singing. So
got it.
So I it happened to be with Atlantic Records. I was choreographing for Debbie Gibson videos. I did a couple of her videos, and because I was at Atlantic and the timing of that, it wasn't Doug Morris, but he was there. Somebody said, "Hey Barry, do you sing, by the way?" Because they knew I was a dancer choreographer. I'm like, that's funny. I said, I'm actually recording some demos right now, and they just said, we'd love to hear them once. You know, if you get them to a place where you're happy with it, we'd love to hear your demos when you get a chance. And that's who I asked. You know, once I got 4 or 5 demos together, I contacted them and played it for them. And it's crazy. We're at a restaurant in LA, and we're passing around this, like, I swear it was a cassette tape, but probably was a CD, passing around the dinner table. People are like listening. And I got offered a record deal that night at dinner.
You gotta be kidding me.
No, it was crazy. And I'm like, is this real? Come on. You know, so I guess they liked enough to hear, you know, like there's enough here and vocals aren't like horrendous or whatever. Like, hey, let's give this guy a deal. And, you know, I work with like 4 different producers. I'm surprised I didn't work with you. We
were in the same circle back in those days. Because
I have your record, dude. I bought St. Paul's record. I have your record.
Kidding?
Yeah. I was really into the Minneapolis sound. Totally into the sound. Ready for the World too, and Maserati. Do you remember Maserati?
Of course.
Yeah. There's some fun. You know, I love Bernadette Cooper. She was of Climax. She was crazy funky. So yeah, I just loved all that music then.
But your manager was whom?
At the time, I had Yeah, I had a manager just managing me trying to do the record deal thing. I didn't really have a manager for like dance and choreography. I just had my agent, and that was fine. But like I had Terry Hartman was her name. And then there was a guy named Dan Brennan.
Well, he was my manager.
Yeah, Dan
Brennan was my manager when I left Prince. And John McClain was in my world back in those days. And you mentioned John McClain with Janet Jackson. So yours and my world almost collided. I mean, we were following each other around. And what's really funny is that you worked with Debbie Gibson then. I work with Debbie Gibson now.
Which is nuts.
She's been on this show before, too.
Wow.
Isn't that nuts?
Yeah, it is nuts. Yeah, I did 2 of her videos back in like 89. And I also got to work with Prince, too. I mean, that's another thing.
Well, let's jump off there and talk a little bit about that. How did you get to work with Prince? Was that Bat Dance? Is that right?
Yes, it was. Bat Dance, yes. In 89. I had been choreographing. I worked with Janet, which opened the doors. I worked with Sting. I worked with George Michaels on his tour. Again, his management wanted like, hey, we need some steps. He needs steps. We just need more of like a movement guy, somebody help him with choreography. Because George had the voice and he had the records. Yeah. And he had the good looks. It's like dancing was probably one of the things that wasn't his forte. And I know what's funny is Paula worked with him, Tony Basil worked with him, and I worked with him. 3 different choreographers worked with George Michaels.
Wow.
It's funny. But and then I got a call to meet with Albert Magnoli. He was with Prince at the time.
Oh yeah.
And I remember having a meeting with Albert and Prince and to discuss doing his music video, which Prince was pretty low key and quiet, was a very observant, similar to Michael to me. Michael was usually quiet in meetings, but you could tell they're very observant. They know everything is happening in the room. But Albert did most of the talking, but I'll never forget that in that meeting for Bat Dance video, I'm thrilled to death. I'm like, I can't believe I'm working with Prince. Like I saw Purple Rain like 6 times the summer of 1984 when it came out. Mm-hmm. I just graduated from high school. I'm getting ready to move to LA and Purple Rain comes out. The movie Breaking came out that summer. I mean, this was like craziness. Everything was, so anyways, huge, massive Prince fan. And had a meeting and it's funny. He's like, he wanted a video that was different. I'm like, well, what do you mean by different? He said, I want it to be theatrical. And I was like, I'm glad I asked the question because, I'm young and, try not to be starstruck in the meeting. Yeah. And I go, what does theatrical mean to you? Because that's just a broad word. It's vague to me. So, but he saw it a certain way, and that's the word he used. He's like, I just want it to be not like a regular music video. I want it to be very theatrical and, costumes. We're going to have bats. We're going to have jokers. We're going to have Vicky Vales. And his character was split in half bat, half joker. So it was more of a production, it was storytelling. And that's where I think he was trying to get at the theatrical thing. So I ended up doing it. And I have a great story. I got to share it with you. I have to do it. It's my favorite Prince saying that he said to me. So I'm in rehearsals, hired the dancers. I got the gig. I'm about three days in, and I'm like, as a young choreographer, I'm like, I don't want to choreograph the entire music video and say, hey, you want to come in and look at it now? Because if I'm not on the right track, I got a lot of reworking to do. So I was about a minute in, and I established, because they did say, they wanted the jokers and the bats to have conflict, establish the jokers, establish the bats. There's conflict between them, and eventually Prince's character gets, revealed in the video. So I'm doing crazy stuff. I'm choreographing out of the box for me with these jokers and with these bats. And I'm about a minute in. I'm like, I got to have Albert and Prince look at this. I got to make sure I'm on the right track here. So they came by rehearsals. They checked it out. Prince was all decked out, looking cool as crap, all his clothes and shoes and car. And they checked it out, and we went off to the other room. And I'm like, so what do you think? I showed it to him twice. And it was just Albert and Prince. And he's like, they're like, yeah, they liked it. And I go, so after this, like, I'm trying to figure out what direction to go next. I go, after this, we can do more bat stuff or more Joker stuff, or we can get them fighting more, or we could do this, or we could do that. And I was doing all these suggestions. I go, what do you think? And Prince just looked at me and with a smirk on his face, and he goes, I don't know, cuz that's up to you.
Whoa.
So he kind of, to me, I'm suggesting this, and they liked what they saw so far. So to me, it was kind of like, you on the right track. You're doing your thing. Keep running with it. He just said, I don't know, cuz that's up to you.
What he did is he gave you the nod, is what he gave you.
He gave me the nod. He gave me the green light. Yep. And I was like, did he just say what I thought he just said?
Classic.
It was pretty cool. Yeah, and then I kept working away, and then a few days later, he eventually came in and started learning his choreography. I had to get everything done.
Did you have to actually sit with him and show him his choreography? Because Prince is a great dancer. I suppose he can't really free for all there. He's got to learn the steps, right? Just like anybody else.
Well, he does this thing. Prince definitely has Prince movement, Prince steps, signature Prince steps. And he does them in the video, but he also had to learn all the staging. Like, where is everybody? Like, where am I right now? Right. When do I move forward? When do I leave the pocket? When do I, pull focus back to me? So there was a lot of choreography going on around him.
Yeah.
So it was staging him and working with some of his movement, which was cool, man. I mean, I just couldn't believe I'm working with Prince and he's learning choreography. And, usually with artists, to make them feel comfortable, you work with them one-on-one before all the dancers come in and you start integrating them with the dancers. You never want a star or an artist to learn choreography while people are watching them. It's like it's uncomfortable. Yep. So, yeah, one-on-one with Prince, it's just so fun, And I remember, too, because he came to those other rehearsals all decked out in like crazy, cool, custom-made outfits. He came to rehearsal with black shorts on, some high tops, and a black T-shirt. I was like, what?
Wait, time out. No, he did not.
Basketball shorts.
I never, in all the time I worked with him, saw him in anything but just decked out. So he came to work.
Yes, he came with like he came from off the court playing ball with his buddies. It was like high tops, black shorts, and a black T-shirt, and it was all kind of cut up. His T-shirt was all cut up. And I was just like, oh, he's got like rehearsal clothes on. Like he's going to sweat.
Dang. There's no pictures, of course. No pictures. Hey, selfie. No, of course. I understand.
No. But I remember it caught me off guard because I thought he would come like, just decked to the nines with the suit on or something.
I played basketball with him when he was decked out to the nines and had high heels on. So this is the first of me hearing him coming to any rehearsal in shorts because he used to give me crap about what I would wear in tennis shoes and shorts or whatever because, that's who I am. And he looked at me like, really? Really?
Yeah. Really?
Does that mean you quit? Oh, yeah. It was about that for him. So that's fascinating to hear that.
It is. It was. It tripped me out. It surprised me that he wore that when he came to rehearsals. It was just me and him and a studio in North Hollywood and a mirror and a boom, a sound system and like, let's go. It was cool, man. Super cool.
Let's move into, instead of doing music videos, let's move into talking about doing things. Let's talk about the Super Bowl for a minute. Yeah. You choreographed and did you direct that as well?
I choreographed it. Yeah. Just choreographed it with all those artists, staged it, choreographed it, dancers, artists for days,
Tell me the names of some of the folks you got to work with on the Super Bowl.
Smokey Robinson, the Temps, the Tops. They kind of had old school Motown, and then they had the newer school Motown. So it was Martha Reeves? Who else? Smokey, Tops, and then it segued over to Boys to Men, Queen Latifah. Just kind of, it was like old Motown mixed with new Motown. We mashed it together, but there was like 20 dancers too, on this massive stage down in San Diego. I'll never forget that. That was a lot of fun. Just the fact, like, this is a Super Bowl halftime special. It was like 2 weeks of rehearsal in LA. It was close. It was in San Diego. So all the LA dancers were down there. And, I grew up a big sport fan. My dad was a huge sport fan in a house of 4 boys and 1 girl.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember being so excited that I'm choreographing the halftime special for the Super Bowl. But I
That's
also was happy.
Deal. That's the biggest of the big, man.
But then I was like, but I'm at a Super Bowl game. That's even cool. Like, I'm at the game, that we always watch.
You get to see the game. Yeah, I'm working. However.
Yeah. It was crazy. Yeah. It was so cool. It was a great memory. A lot of fun that year. That's back in 98.
You reinvented yourself once again and added to your resume by starting to direct world tours and doing TV shows. What exactly does that mean? Because, I don't even know what that means, and I'm sure my listeners don't either. Tell us a little bit about the difference between, choreographing for video and then directing world tours.
Yeah. I realized choreographing, and it's a great question, and choreographing is all the focus and all the attention is all about the steps, the movement, and the staging. It's all about steps, and big, if there's big formations and staging, and the whole big picture. But I realized as time was going by, I wanted to do more than just make up the cool steps. It's like, I want to help select the songs. I want to help, if it's a showcase or a show, I did theme parks, cruise ships. Then I started doing world tours for, Usher was my first big world tour. I wanted to be involved more than just choreography. I wanted to be involved with the conceptual, and that's where our creative directing comes in. Conceiving what the concept is for that song in the show, and then where are we going to next? What is the lighting? What's the screen content? What's the costumes? Is this, just Usher with 4 girls, or is this Usher and the guys, or is this everybody on stage? Like, so... are we in a Mad Max world, apocalyptic thing? Are we in underwater? Like, so it really was conceiving all the creative for a show. And that's directing, creative directing, and putting the show together. And that's where my brain and my interests were kept gravitating to. It's like, I loved choreographing, but it's like, I wanted to do more. That's right. All. And I had the will and the heart in me to desire to want to do more, because I feel like I can help people. I can help producers create their show that they want. If they just let me in on these meetings and I, get from the ground level on up, So I think my first big one was for Paramount Parks, which is a theme park. We did Retros Repeat the Beat, and it was basically songs from the 70s and 80s, stuff I grew up on. I'm like, I'm creating a show of music that I grew up on. How fun is that?
Right.
It was like Oingo Boingo. Was, Queen. It was a Blondie. It was Devo. It was all over the place. I'm like, this is some fun stuff. And then some 70s rock too. It was just a lot of fun. And I realized, what props? I want props for this performance. I want the dancers to have, these light sticks or chairs, or, can we have aerialists come down from the ceiling and whip around in the air, like all that type of stuff. So to me, that's the bigger picture,
Big time.
That's the whole show, the whole kit and caboodle. So Usher was... If you
can dream it, you can do it, right?
Yeah.
That's basically where you're at. You brainstorm this from the beginning of the show to the end. You come up with a concept or a storyboard or something like that.
Yeah.
Present, and then it's like full on. Then you start building, right?
Yep. Once the design, and that's a big thing too. Is what is the stage design? What is the aesthetic that we're presenting? Is it like steel, metal world? Is it smooth and glossy and acrylic? Is it soft goods? Where it has softer tones? Is it jeweled? What is it? Is it LED screens that move around in the air that separate and bust into 4 pieces or one big piece? So all those things. Is there lifts? Is there escalators? Is there conveyor belts? All those toys and gags and special effects, fire, lasers, pyro, fog, all that stuff. It's like, that's the stuff to me that's exciting, like dreaming up these not crazy, just cool performances that the audience can enjoy.
So you're enhancing the entertainment value of the music, really.
That's it. That's
your gig. That's the new gig.
Yep.
You don't choreograph and direct or be creative director, right? Or do you?
I have sometimes, but usually, like on a big tour, the directorial responsibilities is so much, and there's so much communication with all the different department heads that for me to be on my A game directing, it's like I can't be just distracted and so focused on the choreography too. So, which was fine because I grew up choreographing, the last how many years I did it. Mm-hmm. So I would help oversee the choreographers and give them direction and help steer them. But it's like, I don't want to be responsible for making up all those steps and teaching it to the dancers, with 3 to 4 weeks of rehearsal. I'm going to focus on all the directorial stuff, the screen content, what's the graphics, all that stuff. It's a lot. And even wardrobe, talking with the stylist, this wardrobe, it's not right for this performance. It's feeling a little soft, or it needs to be edgier, or can we have a little more bling? So all those different departments that you have to communicate with is a lot, lighting, stage design, special effects. It's fun though. I absolutely love it. I love it. And that's why I do it. I mean, it's fun. It's so fun.
Justin Bieber, Fogerty, Kendrick Lamar, Miguel, Mariah Carey, Paula Abdul, Carrie Underwood, Robbie Williams. How about the King and Crown Prince? I mean, that's unbelievable. You have to tell us what the difference is building a show for someone like a legendary act like Fogerty rather than building something for someone like Carrie Underwood. What's the difference there?
Well, I mean, Fogerty, it's amazing. And I did 3 to 4 tours for Fogerty. And, I was a huge fan of CCR as a kid. My brother had all the records, and I grew up listening, Down on the Corner and Fortunate Son. And, even like, have you ever seen The Rain? There's just, he's a great songwriter and obviously a great guitarist. Yeah. I mean, that dude, he has over 200 guitars. He's a major guitar collector. But here I am. My mindset is different because it's not, a Mariah Carey or a Carrie Underwood or a Bieber or a Rihanna. I'm dealing with a legendary rocker who's proved himself 100 times over, who was played at Woodstock at 24 years old with his band. Right. I mean, that's freaking amazing to me. So it was kind of like, but I do know, and his wife managed him and still does. They were searching for more production around him to complement his music, and whether it be visuals, more powerful lighting, and to give him more of a show that has production value to it. So that's why I was brought in, because he has the songs, and he, they had great lighting, but we added special effects. We had pyro, and we had fire, and we had this and that, and then set design and screen content is what we brought a lot to the table. So to me, it was pitching a lot of, what songs are they, and pitching the ideas of what the visuals will be for each song, and I create a whole creative treatment, like a document. Sure. And, you always pitch it and see if they like it, or if they don't like it. If there's something they don't like, that's fine. Just exit off the list and I'll find something else. Being flexible, I've learned, is key. And just because somebody doesn't like my creative idea, I cannot take it personally, because it's a matter of taste. If they're not feeling that, it's like, I can't force somebody to like it. Like, why don't you like it? It's such a great idea. It's like, no. If they don't like it, they don't like it. Fine. And I don't hold a grudge. I go, okay, cool. Or sometimes I might say, what don't you like about it? Because they might sort of like it, but there's something in there that's rubbing them the wrong way. And I'm like, oh, I can fix that. No, that's an easy fix. So, but with Fogerty, though, his music was so iconic, so classic rock. I mean, to me, it was an honor to work with somebody like him and to help bring production. Because to me, he was a superstar. He was a superstar. And I felt like his show, back when I first started working with him, wasn't giving him, and the word isn't notoriety, it wasn't presenting him as this iconic rocker superstar that he is, and an amazing musician. I'm like, he deserves this. He deserves to have an amazing entrance.
Right.
Have him come up on a lift and have pyro blow up, and like he's freaking John Fogerty. He's incredible. So I helped bring all that to the table, and it was a great, I did probably 3, maybe 4 tours with him. So it was really cool. We had this one cool idea, which I'll never forget. Him singing Born on the Bayou at 24 years old and we have the original footage with this shaggy hair. And we have this big scrim, kabuki drop, we call it, a big scrim, projected John singing Born on the Bayou. And then the scrim just drops, disappears, pyro goes, and here's the real John now. So it's like young John, now real John, and he finished the whole song off. It was so cool. It was a great opener. Great opener.
How important is listening in your job?
Huge, because like I said, it doesn't matter what I like. I will bring ideas to the table, but I need to hear and listen, and everybody's different. There's some artists where they're like, we don't know exactly what we want. That's why we're coming to you. Like, you're the guy with the ideas, and they might have like a very simple description, and that's it. Or there's people, not a lot of artists, that have a lot of like a really solid idea of what they want coming into the first meeting with me. It's usually, it evolves. You talk, you converse, you figure out what the set list is, because the songs are going to dictate what type of production it's going to be, and the hit songs and the this and the that. And so listening is key, obviously. And then digesting what they told you. I go home, I work on stuff and get something together to pitch it back at them and see if, what resonates, what sticks, what goes away. And again, if an idea goes away and I so love it, I've learned, like, you just got to let it go. I mean, I'll fight for something if I really think like almost like they're making an error, but I'll converse about it just for a little bit. And if I could tell, like, you know what, they're not feeling it.
Right.
I just let it go. Just let it go. So, and it's fine.
First step is always listening, isn't it? Same in music. In music.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, the name of this show is Music on the Run. And I like to talk about how you, the artist, keeps it all together. I mean, you've been on the road since you've been 5.
Yeah,
how do you deal with being on the road? You're a dad. You're a family man. How do you handle the pressures of being on the road?
That's a good question. A lot of people don't ask that, And I mean, I had really, really good parents that brought me up. Really solid, good morals. Just solid parents. And I think their influence on me and how they brought me up had a lot to do with it, because I did enjoy success at a very young age. And in my head, I kept saying, stay humble, stay humble. You're only as good as your last job. This could all go away tomorrow. It could all go away tomorrow. Like, you don't know how long this journey is going to go. Yes, you're on top right now, but next year, who knows? So I always try to stay humble, try to write it out, always pour my heart and soul into it and do my best. But I am a family man. I've been married. We've been married 28 years. And we have 2 daughters. Bravo,
brother.
Thank you. 28, and then we have 2 daughters that are 25 and 21 almost. And I know you got 2 daughters too yourself. Yeah. So I realized that 3 weeks was my limit. I don't like being gone for more than 3 weeks from my wife or the kids. And I realized, and I've done some projects where, it was a 3-month project. And I remember asking my agent back in the day, I've done some films in Toronto, and it's like, hey, it's 3 weeks, and I mean 3 months. And I would always ask, either fly me home to my family at least twice during this job, or fly my family to me.
Sure.
And I've been very lucky because a lot of projects that I've done, they've agreed to do that. Because, that's what my agent would say. Look, Barry wants to do this project. He's passionate about it, but he's also a family man, and it's like, so if you can get that, arranged, that's awesome. But again, I realized too is balance. The key word for me was balance. It can't be all career and no family, and not all family. And then, you got to make a living and bring home, money to the table and take care of our family. So it was always trying to find that balance of like, wow, I've been working too much. I miss my family, or I'm having all this family time and the funds are getting low. Like I got to get to work. So it was just trying to find that balance in a happy place, and but you got to want it. You got to want to strive for it, because sometimes family can get kicked to the side. Then it's, you can do some damage and it's too late. And you're like, what happened? I got so caught up in my career, I kind of forgot about my family, so, and I didn't want that to happen. I had really good parents, and I wanted to be a good father to my kids. I wanted to be around. So, and they get excited. I try to involve them when, I used to do Disney on Ice shows back when they were little. And I'm like, you got to see opening night. You guys are going to fly down here and you're going to see opening night, because they're all little and see all these big costumes and craziness.
Oh, yeah.
So, it was important to involve them. And, and another thing too, which I don't know if everybody does, but if it was a big gig that required being away, I always talked about it with my wife.
Yeah.
And as a joint, let's talk about this together. What's the pros and cons? We know it's going to be maybe a little hard on us being away, but does the good outweigh the bad? And we always made a decision together. I never made a decision without her. I mean, just to include and to do it together, because that's what we're doing. We're on this journey together.
That's the secret to a long marriage. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You said it there.
You try. There's ups and downs, that, but you gotta want it. It's gotta be important.
You gotta work at it too.
Fight for it. Yeah, absolutely.
So you're a dancer, but I don't know if you do as much dancing now as you've done in the past. How do you stay in shape? That's what I want to know.
Now it hurts.
Come on,
dance
now.
And I'm
you better come clean. You better come clean.
I just yanked that. Yeah, I just pulled my hammy. Oh, my back. I just tweaked. Yeah, I tweaked my back. I just danced for literally 1 minute. Sometimes when I hear good stuff, I start dancing like I'm 21 years old and I'm not. And, I just start going ham. And I'm like, oh, dang. I got to slow it down.
That hurt. Oh.
Slow. Yeah. You're at a backyard barbecue thinking you're 18 and you're like, oh my God. I just hurt myself.
Yeah. But you got to do something to stay in shape. You look good, man.
Thanks. I mean, I don't exercise a ton, but I still will freestyle. I'll go in the basement, put on some music, and I'll still freestyle. And then I'm always flabbergasted by how I can't breathe, and I only dance for about 1:30.
See? Right.
See, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Check, please.
Yeah. If you don't use it, you lose it. So and I have to admit, I didn't during COVID. I still, and because I love it, I still teach hip hop classes. I still will go to dance studios and teach master classes.
Wow.
And to me, that keeps me youthful. I go out and I buy new music that I haven't heard. I get inspired. I'll make up new steps, new choreography. And I get in this mode of like, I'm going to teach new stuff. It's making me happy. And I'm going to go inspire these teenagers and connect with them because I've been blessed with a really good career. And it's like, and I noticed about 5 years ago, I'm like, I need to be giving back. I need to give back. I need to inspire. I need to talk about my experiences to the younger generation. And maybe they get a little nugget, they get a little, glimpse of something or inspired. And I notice that's important. I feel like I have to do that more and more and more, is to give back, because I like I said, I've been blessed with a lot of cool situations. And I just talked to a bunch of college kids about a month ago on Zoom. And they're all like at Pace University. It's like a dance university college in New York, Manhattan. And they're all dancers, inspiring, singers, actors, dancers. And they ask the best questions, and they want to know, like, how do you dream up like a tour production? Like, where do you start? How do you, do you get involved with lighting and the screen content? And, they ask great questions.
Right.
So, and I just try to feed them as much as I can, and be honest,
Yeah.
I'm always nervous. I get nervous if I get a big gig tomorrow, I'm like, oh, damn, I'm nervous. It's because I feel like you have to go prove yourself. You have, the credentials, you have this resume, you have this experience, but it's like, you're only as good as your last job. You got to go out and prove yourself again. And I like that. I like that pressure. I feed off of it, and it pushes me. And so it's because I care. As soon as I stop caring, I'm like, maybe I should think about another business.
Barry, you're a good man. It's been so much fun chatting with you and just getting to know you better and having more importantly, my listeners get to know you, who you are, what you've done. What an incredible career you continue to have. So congratulations. And
Thanks,
service
man.
above self. That is our motto in Rotary. And we continue that into our lives, and we give back musically. We give back with our advice.
Knowledge.
Really, we appreciate that. Thank you for taking the time out to talk with us. Ladies and gentlemen, Barry Lather.
It was a blast, man.
Thank you for joining us, man.
Woo!
That's it
Thanks,
for
brother,
episode
man.
42, and we will see you in 2 weeks. We'll see you later. Music on the Run was hosted by yours truly, St. Paul Peterson. Edited and produced by my buddy, Davide Raso. Artist relations by Owen Sartori. Video editing by Tanner Montague. And a very special thanks to the people who financially support this podcast. And remember, dance like nobody's watching.
Yeah!